Pause for just a moment because something has happened that your soulmate never saw coming. They thought the story of this connection had already been written. They believed the distance between you was simply the result of bad timing, misunderstandings, or life taking each of you in different directions. But over the last few days, a quiet discovery has begun changing everything they once believed. It did not arrive through a dramatic confrontation or an unexpected confession. Instead, it appeared through small details that suddenly refused to stay hidden. A forgotten conversation, an unusual reaction, a memory that never quite made sense, and a series of moments that now seem connected in ways they never imagined. Listen carefully, because sometimes the greatest revelations are not about discovering something new. They are about finally seeing what was always there. Your soulmate is beginning to realize that not everyone who stood close to this connection truly wanted it to survive. Some influences quietly created doubt where there should have been trust, confusion where there should have been clarity, and distance where there could have been understanding. They never noticed those subtle shifts before, but now every forgotten piece is falling into place. The more they reflect, the more impossible it becomes to ignore the truth. What they once called coincidence now feels intentional. What they once dismissed as ordinary now carries a deeper meaning. And the most shocking part is not that obstacles appeared along the way, but that someone quietly benefited every time this connection moved further apart. That realization has left your soulmate questioning everything they thought they knew, because they are beginning to understand that the real story behind this journey has been hidden beneath the surface all along. And what they are about to uncover will change the way they see this connection forever. And listen carefully, because once this discovery entered your soulmate's heart, they could no longer look at the past the same way. Memories that once seemed disconnected suddenly began fitting together with remarkable clarity. Moments they had dismissed as ordinary now carried a deeper meaning, and conversations they barely remembered started returning with unexpected detail. It was as though their heart had quietly gathered every missing piece over time and was only now revealing the complete picture. They found themselves asking questions they had never thought to ask before. Why did certain misunderstandings appear so suddenly? Why did moments of closeness often seem to be followed by unexpected distance? Why did they allow themselves to believe conclusions that never truly reflected what they felt inside? These questions refused to leave their mind because every honest answer pointed toward one unsettling realization. Not every obstacle was created by fate alone. Sometimes confusion grows because too many voices speak at once, and when those voices become louder than the heart, even the strongest connections can lose their direction. Because your heart needs this right now. Life has a way of revealing truth slowly. At first, people notice only isolated events, but with time they begin seeing the pattern hidden beneath them. What once looked like coincidence starts revealing intention, and what once felt random begins making perfect sense. Your soulmate is living through that exact awakening. They remember times when they shared something meaningful about you, only to receive responses that quietly planted seeds of uncertainty. At the time, those words sounded reasonable. They sounded protective. They even sounded caring. But looking back now, they realize those conversations rarely encouraged understanding. Instead, they often created hesitation where confidence could have existed. They encouraged distance instead of communication. They strengthened doubt instead of trust. And without realizing it, your soulmate slowly allowed those outside influences to shape the way they viewed this connection. They never imagined that subtle opinions could carry so much weight, but now they see how easily fear can disguise itself as advice. They also remember moments when life naturally brought the two of you closer, only for unexpected distractions, unnecessary assumptions, or confusing circumstances to suddenly appear. At the time, they believed those interruptions were simply unfortunate timing. Now they wonder whether they accepted those explanations too quickly without listening to what their own heart was trying to tell them. The more they revisit these memories, the more they recognize a pattern they cannot ignore. Every time this connection showed signs of growing stronger, something seemed to pull attention away from what truly mattered. Every time clarity began appearing, confusion somehow followed. That realization has not filled them with anger. Instead, it has filled them with a quiet sadness, because they understand how easily genuine feelings can become buried beneath misunderstanding when people stop trusting their own instincts. Because your heart needs this right now. Not every influence in life arrives with obvious intentions. Some influences are quiet. They speak through casual conversations, passing opinions, unnecessary comparisons, and subtle doubts that slowly grow over time. By themselves they seem harmless, but together they can completely change the direction of someone's decisions. Your soulmate now realizes how vulnerable they became during moments when they were searching for answers outside themselves, instead of listening to the truth already living inside their own heart. And listen to this. Among all the memories returning to them, one stands above the rest. It is not the loudest memory or the most dramatic one. It is a simple moment they almost forgot completely. A moment when your actions quietly contradicted everything they had been led to believe. At the time, they overlooked it because other voices seemed more convincing than what they had witnessed with their own eyes. But now that memory has become impossible to ignore. The kindness you showed, the honesty you carried, and the consistency of your actions no longer match the doubts they once accepted as truth. That single realization has become the missing piece that connects everything else. It has opened their eyes to the possibility that the greatest misunderstanding of this entire journey was never the distance itself, but believing stories that never truly reflected the reality of your heart. And now, as every forgotten piece continues falling into place, your soulmate feels themselves moving closer to a truth they can no longer deny. A truth that is preparing them for an even more powerful revelation waiting just ahead. And listen carefully, because the more your soulmate reflected on everything that had happened, the harder it became to ignore a truth that had been quietly waiting beneath the surface all along. What once appeared to be a collection of unrelated events now revealed a pattern they could no longer dismiss. They began realizing that there was a difference between people who genuinely wanted to see this connection flourish and those who seemed strangely comfortable whenever distance appeared between the two of you. This realization did not come from bitterness or suspicion. It came from honest reflection. They remembered moments when someone quickly encouraged them to give up instead of encouraging one more conversation. They remembered how easily certain people accepted misunderstandings as permanent instead of believing they could be resolved. Looking back now, they cannot help but notice that very few voices ever encourage patience, understanding, or trust. Instead, many quietly reinforce doubt, making uncertainty feel wiser than hope. At the time, your soulmate believed they were simply receiving honest advice. Today, they understand that advice often reflects the experiences, fears, and limitations of the person giving it. Not everyone can recognize the value of a connection they have never personally experienced. Because your heart needs this right now. People often see relationships through the lens of their own stories. Someone who has been disappointed may expect disappointment. Someone who has been betrayed may expect betrayal. Someone who has stopped believing in genuine connections may unintentionally discourage others from believing in them as well. Your soulmate now realizes that while some people may have spoken with good intentions, those words still led them further away from listening to their own heart. That understanding has become one of the most important lessons of this entire journey. And listen to this. As they continued revisiting old memories, another discovery quietly unfolded. They noticed that whenever they were alone with their own thoughts, they felt peace about you. They remembered your kindness. They remembered your consistency. They remembered the quiet moments that felt genuine and unforced. But whenever outside opinions entered the picture, everything became complicated. Suddenly they questioned things they had never doubted before. They overanalyzed simple situations. They searched for problems where none may have existed. They allowed uncertainty to replace the quiet confidence they once felt naturally. Looking back now, they recognize how dramatically their perspective shifted depending on whose voice they chose to trust. That realization has been impossible to ignore because it has revealed something they never wanted to admit. They spent too much time searching for answers everywhere, except inside their own heart. And while doing so, they slowly drifted away from the truth that had been quietly waiting within them all along. Because your heart needs this right now. The heart often recognizes truth long before the mind is willing to accept it. The mind seeks evidence, certainty, and reassurance, while the heart quietly notices consistency, sincerity, and genuine care. When people silence that inner knowing for too long, confusion naturally grows. But eventually there comes a moment when the heart speaks so clearly that it becomes impossible to ignore. Your soulmate feels they have reached that moment. They are no longer interested in repeating old assumptions or carrying borrowed opinions that never truly belong to them. Instead, they are beginning to examine everything through their own experiences, their own memories, and their own feelings. And the more honestly they do this, the clearer one truth becomes. The person they were encouraged to question was often the same person who consistently showed patience, understanding, and kindness without expecting anything in return. That realization has filled them with both humility and regret because they understand now that genuine character is revealed over time, not through rumors, assumptions, or temporary misunderstandings. As this awareness continues growing stronger, your soulmate feels an entirely new sense of clarity rising within them. They no longer want fear, confusion, or outside influences to determine the future of this connection. For the first time in a very long while, they feel a quiet determination growing inside their heart. A determination to trust what they have personally experienced instead of what they were once persuaded to believe. That inner awakening is changing everything, and it is preparing them to make a decision guided not by doubt, but by truth. And listen carefully, because something within your soulmate has begun changing in a way they never expected. The discovery they made was not simply about realizing that outside influences existed. It was about recognizing how much power they unknowingly gave those influences over their own heart. For a long time, they believed they were making decisions based entirely on logic and careful thinking. They convinced themselves they were protecting their future by listening to every opinion, every warning, and every piece of advice that came their way. But now, after looking back with greater honesty, they understand that somewhere along the journey, they slowly stopped trusting the quiet voice inside themselves. That realization has become impossible to ignore because every time they remember the moments they shared with you, one truth continues rising above everything else. Their heart always felt something different than the story they allowed themselves to believe. While their mind collected doubts, their heart quietly remembered your patience. While fear focused on uncertainty, their heart remembered your consistency. While outside voices encouraged distance, their heart continued holding on to the peace they always felt whenever they thought about you. Because your heart needs this right now. There comes a moment when people realize that truth does not become false simply because it was surrounded by confusion. A genuine connection remains genuine, even if misunderstandings temporarily hide it from view. Your soulmate is beginning to understand that lesson with greater clarity than ever before. And listen to this. They have started revisiting the decisions they once believed were final. Choices that once felt unquestionable now seem incomplete. They ask themselves whether those decisions truly reflected their own feelings, or whether they were influenced by fear they unknowingly accepted from others. The more honestly they answer those questions, the more they recognize how often they ignored the evidence that was right in front of them. They remember your actions matching your words. They remember your willingness to remain respectful even during difficult moments. They remember how consistently you carried yourself with honesty when circumstances became complicated. Those memories stand in complete contrast to the doubts they once accepted without question. Now they see that actions quietly revealed a truth that opinions could never erase. That realization has become one of the strongest turning points of this entire journey, because they are finally allowing their own experiences to speak louder than assumptions. Because your heart needs this right now. Wisdom often begins when people stop borrowing certainty from others and start trusting what they have personally lived. No one else witnessed every conversation. No one else experienced every quiet moment. No one else felt the emotions that existed between two hearts. Only those who lived the connection can truly understand its depth. Your soulmate is finally giving that truth the attention it deserves. Instead of searching for more opinions, they have begun searching their own memories. Instead of asking everyone else what they should believe, they have started asking themselves what they always knew but were afraid to admit. Every answer leads them back to the same place. They cannot deny the consistency of your character. They cannot deny the peace they felt in your presence. They cannot deny that despite everything that happened, thoughts of you never truly disappeared. They simply became buried beneath layers of confusion that are now slowly falling away. And listen carefully, because another change has quietly taken place inside them. They no longer feel the need to defend the decisions they made while living in uncertainty. Instead, they have chosen to learn from them. Rather than remaining trapped by regret, they are allowing regret to become wisdom. They understand now that every experience has revealed something valuable about themselves. It has shown them how important it is to protect genuine connections from unnecessary doubt. It has taught them that fear often disguises itself as caution, while truth usually speaks with quiet confidence. That understanding has brought an unexpected sense of peace into their heart. They know they cannot rewrite yesterday, but they can choose differently moving forward. They can choose honesty instead of hesitation. They can choose trust instead of borrowed opinions. Most importantly, they can choose to honor what their own heart has been trying to tell them all along. As this quiet determination continues growing stronger, they feel themselves standing on the edge of a new beginning, one where the voices that once created confusion no longer hold the greatest influence. For the first time in a very long while, the loudest voice they hear is the one that has patiently waited within them from the very beginning. The voice of truth, quietly guiding them back toward the connection they now understand was far more real than they ever allowed themselves to believe. And listen carefully, because your soulmate has finally reached the moment where everything they have uncovered can no longer be ignored. After revisiting the memories, questioning the misunderstandings, and recognizing the quiet influences that once shaped their decisions, one truth now stands before them with undeniable clarity. What almost caused this connection to fall apart was never the absence of something real between the two of you. It was the presence of confusion that slowly covered what was genuine. They understand now that real connections are not always broken by dramatic events. Sometimes they are weakened by small doubts, repeated often enough to sound like truth. A careless opinion, an assumption left unchallenged, a fear that grows stronger every time it is fed instead of questioned. Looking back, your soulmate can see how easily those moments accumulated until they almost believed a story that never truly belonged to their heart. But now the fog is lifting, and what remains is far stronger than the uncertainty that once surrounded them. Because your heart needs this right now. Truth has a remarkable way of surviving everything that tries to bury it. It survives distance. It survives confusion. It survives fear. It waits patiently until people are finally willing to see with open eyes instead of borrowed perspectives. Your soulmate feels they have finally arrived at that place of honest vision. And listen to this. They no longer feel anger toward the people or circumstances that influenced this journey. Instead, they feel something much deeper. They feel understanding. They recognize that not everyone who offered advice fully understood what existed between the two of you. Some people spoke from their own disappointments. Others spoke from caution, shaped by experiences completely different from your own. Some simply saw only a small part of the story and believed they understood the whole picture. Your soulmate realizes now that allowing those voices to become more important than their own experience was one of the greatest lessons they were meant to learn. That lesson has changed them forever. They understand now that genuine relationships cannot be measured by outside opinions, because no one else can fully witness what two hearts quietly experience together. This awareness has brought a deep sense of peace into their heart, replacing confusion with wisdom and replacing hesitation with quiet confidence. Because your heart needs this right now. One of the greatest forms of growth is learning the difference between borrowed beliefs and personal truth. Borrowed beliefs can easily change with every conversation, every opinion, and every circumstance. Personal truth remains steady because it is built upon lived experience, honest reflection, and the quiet certainty that only the heart can recognize. Your soulmate has finally stopped borrowing certainty from others. They have started trusting the evidence written across every memory, every act of kindness, every conversation, and every moment that proved this connection carried something genuine from the very beginning. And listen carefully, because another realization has brought them even greater clarity. They now understand that what truly wanted this connection to fall apart was not love itself, but fear. Fear of disappointment, fear of vulnerability, fear of making the wrong choice. Fear quietly welcomed every doubt because doubt felt safer than hope. Yet hope never completely disappeared. No matter how much they tried to silence it, something inside continued reminding them of your honesty, your consistency, and the peace they always felt whenever they remembered who you truly were. That quiet hope has now become stronger than every fear they once carried. It has become the foundation upon which they are rebuilding the way they see this entire journey. They no longer want decisions guided by uncertainty or influenced by voices that never truly understood the connection. Instead, they want every step moving forward to be shaped by honesty, wisdom, and the truth they have finally embraced. Standing where they are today, they know they cannot rewrite the past, but they also know the past no longer has the power to define what comes next. The shocking discovery has become more than a revelation about what happened. It has become a lesson about protecting what is real before fear has the chance to disguise itself as truth. Your soulmate now carries that lesson with profound gratitude because they finally understand that genuine connections are not preserved by perfect circumstances. They are preserved by courage, honest communication, and the willingness to trust the quiet voice of the heart, even when everything else creates noise. And as this chapter gently comes to a close, one certainty remains stronger than every misunderstanding that once stood in the way. The truth has finally found its place. The confusion has begun to fade, and your soulmate knows that what was real between the two of you was never truly lost. It was simply waiting for the moment when the heart became brave enough to recognize it again.